All right.
You don't need to see me online, but I will stay in and listen, and I'm here.
Okay, great. Um, so if you guys don't already know, I'm Kat. I'm the executive director of Water Rangers, and I'm just going to start with a quick presentation that just sort of introduces you to um, what we're all about. So just a second, share. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so as you know, this is a program that we're running alongside WWF to try and build more capacity in watersheds. A lot of the Canadian watersheds are big. There's no way that scientists can collect enough data on their own. And there's big data gaps, but not just necessarily data gaps in the sense that data is there, but is it being shared as well? So part of that is we're working with them, and the cool thing about WWF is that they've actually bought a whole bunch of test kits themselves for their staff to help lend out to other volunteers that are looking for ways to contribute to help waterways. So that's where we're sort of coming from here. But the whole Water Rangers concept started when I was out water testing with my dad, and he's been doing it since 2003, and he tests during ice off. So at the time of ice off, this is when the ice disappears from the lake, and the lake is actually mixing. So it's a time, the protocol of our region was to go out then. Oftentimes we wouldn't get the results back for months, and when I asked him about it, he didn't know what the results meant. Now, when you're dealing with sort of citizen scientists and trying to get people engaged, it's really tough when that moment of understanding is months later. And it's nothing to do with second, I have a comment here. We have a second chat. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Karen. Okay. So the problem is a lot of these little organizations, they don't have the technical abilities, and so they shouldn't. They're really focused on the environment. And so the idea came, like, how can I help build capacity in small groups so that little organizations can spend less time doing admin and more time on the projects that they wanted. So the idea came to create a way to view and share data on online. And I'm a web designer and an app designer. And so this was the very, very, very first prototype of Water Rangers, which was part of something called River Rangers, which was built for the Ottawa River as part of aqua hacking in 2015. And there's my co-founder, Mark, and my other co-founder, Ollie, are both web developers. So we come from a technical background. And after we won, people said, this is really cool. This is something that we really need. But I also realized that I didn't have the knowledge and capabilities to understand the complexities of testing. So I went out with conservation authorities and other groups to try and learn how they tested, what sort of things we could do as community groups without too much training that would be beneficial and would help fill in these data gaps. So that's me out with some of the conservation authorities doing some testing. So we created the first test kits because we'd created the platform, and then people said, oh, I want to start testing. How can I start testing? And I said, well, go to your local organization and they'll get you started. And then I found out that the tools out there weren't that great, and the user experience of those tools were awful as well. And a lot of them were really inaccurate, and I couldn't believe that people were using these. So I got a bug for figuring out ways to do it. But the coolest part about all this connection is meeting people like, this is Guy McLeod, and he's been a citizen scientist for a long time, and he's been doing water temperature, but he also works with his local conservation authority here in Ontario at Sharpet Lake, they do testing, but they can't do it every year now because of funding and because of capacity, and they're big areas. So he does the Citizen Science Water Rangers kit in between. And because of it, they really love it. So that's great. But the cool thing about citizen science is that, you know, over time, we really can create baselines. And this is an example of Guy McLeod has been testing water temperature the same time, the same day since 1983. And he's seen an increase, you know, where we talk about climate change, but here's a citizen who has noticed an increase in temperature as well. So really cool that we can complement and help fill those data gaps. So either you had a test kit or you're getting one soon. And this is the full test kit here, which you'll have. But we'll go through that in a second. But I really want to make sure that I let you know a little bit about some of the research we're doing to try and make sure that this is as accurate as possible. So 2 years ago and again this year, we're comparing our test kit against professional probes for temperature, pH, conductivity, and dissolved oxygen. And the test kit has done really well. The professionals that we've talked with are really impressed. Mute yourself. It's just a little noisy. Sorry. Thanks. For temperature and conductivity, the results were absolutely excellent. We have a local chemist who is just over the moon with how great those two have done. The pH, the dissolved oxygen was very good as well. And then the pH, because it's a color test, we have to be a bit more careful when we do these readings because it's orange to pink. But we're looking at using apps to try and read that going forward. So we go out with kids and teach them how to do citizen science. You can see even little kids can participate, although some of the tests are a little bit more complicated than others. But there's lots of things that kids can do. And so I encourage you to go out and take kids to be part of your testing. And then also, this is one of our testers. She's in Nova Scotia. And she told me that she was having real trouble reaching the water. And so you'll note there's a selfie stick in there. And this was her contribution. Originally, she lashed her sample cup to a fishing spike and then said that this was the only way she could reach the water. So we're really excited about when you guys tell us ways that you improve the kit so that the kit can continue to improve. And we also do some research on finding out how people connect to waters and what they do. And so we do encourage you, and we'll give you some tips on how to do more things. But I think it's really important that we think about this as, yes, we're taking water tests, but we also want to be active and try and do more. And you are going to find that a lot of people are going to ask you what you're doing. It's good to practice teaching how to use the kit. A lot of people became teachers, 89%, so that's really high. And a lot of people learned about their local waterways. But one of the cool things is people talking about taking their kits on vacations and using it as a way to visit new places. So visiting new water bodies, because every body of water is unique. And there's me in my screen. All right, I'm going to close this down. We're going to go through the kit. I'm getting a lot of feedback, so if you're not, if you wouldn't mind just muting yourself, or I can mute you. Can I mute you? Oh yeah, I can. Okay, I'm muting you. Just because we are recording this, and so I want to make sure that that we can share this with the other people who can't visit. So before I show you how to enter your data in, let's go through the big kit. And I noticed Vince is on here, and he only has the mini kit. But this is the bigger kit. But there's obviously the components in there that that you have as well, and some extras. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go through the front pocket, and then we'll go through all the tests one by one. One of the things that we include is both a cell phone case, a splash proof, don't go swimming with it, and a notepad. Now, depending on how you're testing, if it's really windy or you're on a boat and it's rocking, I really prefer to use the notepad. Oftentimes I'll do a combination. I'll enter in maybe some of my notes on my notepad because I can write faster, but I'll take photos and I'll add in some of my tests. So you can see here we go through all the tests that we want you to do as part of this kit. And the most important things to note are the body of water and the location. So if you're on, say, Lake Ontario, it's a really big lake, you really need to make sure you enter a location name as well. We want you to enter in the weather now and in the last 24 hours. The weather is really a big factor. I mean, we get a lot of runoff and all sorts. And then air temperature, water temperature, conductivity, dissolved oxygen. You have your test strips over here. And then if you can see the bottom, you do the depth. And if you can't see the bottom, you do the Secchi depth, which I'll show you. So, try out using the app. I think that it's nice not to have to transfer your data later because, that can be a source of error. But using the notepad is really great. And this is one of our new testers last year. So we always try and feature our testers in our new notepads. We also include a field guide, and this is going to be your buddy. I'm going to go through lots of things today, but don't worry, I'm recording this, and the field guide goes through everything with tips, and then it also has these links. So these links are online, and I'll show you that stuff after. But basically, we sort of repeat all the content online as well as give you videos. There's lots of different learning styles, so we want to make sure that people know. So you can see here, this is the disc, and then we have some diagrams and some tips to do. So yeah, you can go through that. And then there's also something called our 10-minute training video, and what it is, it's me in the snow in March. It's with the older kit, but it's all the same components, and it just goes through the whole process of me doing a test. Now I've gotten really fast at doing my tests. I've really optimized, so I can do a test in less than 5 minutes, my whole test, but most people take about 15 minutes to do it, so I don't want you to worry too much that it's going to take up a lot of time. We also have a little bag of goodies. There's some details about your equipment. It's not necessary for you to do that, but if you need more information, there's some stickers and some badges. John's asking, is it possible to get extra copies of the instructions? Yes, definitely. I can send you a PDF as well if you'd like to print it out. Yeah, so what we do with badges, I usually do with kids, is I do skill testing questions at the end of the session. So we do all our tests, and we do skill testing questions at the end, and it sort of reinforces the lessons and make sure that they've really absorbed it, and then they become an official water ranger. Really great with little kids. There's also a magnet in here with our official testing days. Our official testing days are the last Sunday of every month, but there's alternative dates there. So in this case, it's the Friday, the Saturday, and some people do the Monday as well. We have some groups that it's part of their job, so they do their testing on either Friday or Monday. And we want you to do it around the same time every day. And what we're trying to do is create a whole picture of Canada at a certain point in time. So that's our official testing days. But depending on how you decide your plan, and that's something that Najib is going to be sending out some more details on. I'm going to go through an overview of it. But once you start creating what your plan is, your testing plan, you can either just do monthly visits at, say, 4 sites to get your full number of observations that you're supposed to do, also on a monthly basis. Or if you decide to do weekly testing, you can decide and make sure that you note that in your profile. With weekly testing, we really like you to try and do at least 2 sites. The reason being, there's this idea in water testing of a reference site. So if you're, say, concerned about a harbor or a dock of some sort, that this is the reason why you want to test there, you want a reference site of one that you think is undisturbed, so that we have a way to compare those 2 things. We also include some postcards, and these can help you when people ask you what you're doing. You're going to get better at explaining what you're doing, but if you need some help, there's some postcards there. And then the last thing in here is this is part of our machine learning study that we're trying to do. We want to see how accurately we can read test strips. So this is completely optional, but if you would like to participate in this, all you have to do is, when you do your test, also take a photo of your test strip. Still record the values that you think they are, but also take a photo on here too, and that would be really helpful. There's also an envelope in here. We're starting a new thing just this month where we're asking you to send your test strips, used test strips, back to us. We're attempting to try and lessen our waste. So if you could send those back to us, we can't recycle them. I contacted the manufacturer. They're the best test strips, so we want to make sure we had accurate ones, but unfortunately they're not recyclable yet. So send them back to us so that we can deal with them. All right, so let's look inside the main kit. And yes, if you have any questions, please just put them in the comments, and I'll make sure that I try to answer them. Or Najiba is there as well, and she can help answer them as well. Okay, it'll be hard for you guys to see. The big kit, it's got lots of goodies in it. And actually, I put all your cups in like this, but I just realized if you put it like this, it doesn't fall out. So switch it around when you get it. I took this out with me, so I think it's missing something. Just a second. All right. Okay. So you're gonna notice you have a little container in here. This is in your field to collect your used test strips. We don't want you putting wet ones in your envelope, so it just fits up here. And these are some gloves and some Whirlpack bags, and I'll explain that in a second. It's your sample cup. And then you can see down here, the first thing we have is, this is our Secchi disc. And the Secchi disc is to measure water clarity, and it's been used for about 200 years. So it's a really cool citizen science project that's been going on for a long time. So basically what you do, it's a visual test. You lower it in the water until you can't see it anymore. And then you lift it up and down until you find that perfect spot where it disappears. And then you grab the measuring tape at the water. Now, we measure in meters. So if this was my water clarity depth, my Secchi depth, it's around 32 centimeters. I usually just round it to the nearest tenth because it is a visual test. But I wouldn't enter 30 or 32, I would enter 0.3. So just make sure that you do that conversion. Every body of water has its normal level for water clarity. For example, my lake is between 5 and 8 meters, but Lake Superior is much more. And some bodies of water, 30 centimeters is completely normal for them. But you're gonna notice over the season, your water clarity changes. And scientists have told us that they are really interested in our data on Secchi depth. Make sure you hold on to this, don't drop it in the water, so make sure your hand is nicely secure in there. And there's a little like nubby thing there to reel it up. So these are new this year. Before we had these ropes, but people found them a little bit hard to read. So the first thing we do when we go to a site is actually we hang our thermometer up in a tree. Now, if you don't have a tree or a shady spot, you can also use the local weather network for your region and just record that. Just make sure you record that you use that in your notes. Air is a context parameter, but we don't want to hang it on our body. Our body's going to affect the heat. We don't want it on the side of a metal boat, and we don't want it in the sun because you're going to notice that it's not going to be very accurate at all. Then we have, what do we want to do? Conductivity? Sure, let's do that. Okay, this is your conductivity meter. And conductivity is a measure of how much ions are in the water. So anything that can conduct electricity. So think about metals, but also road salts, things like calcium, magnesium, but also phosphorus and nitrogen will affect these readings. So the cool thing about conductivity is that every body of water has its own unique and normal level. So for example, the Ottawa River that flows through Ottawa has a natural conductivity level of around 70. But the Rideau River, which also flows, but from the south, has a natural conductivity around 350. And when I ask kids, I'm like, well, what does that mean? And they say, well, the Rideau must be very polluted. And I'm like, well, this is a reading from an unpolluted area of the Rideau River, and it turns out that it has a lot to do with the bedrock that the river flows through and how much a volume of water. So for example, a little stream is touching the sides with more water, and so more will get dissolved into it. The Rideau River has a limestone bottom, so it has more calcium and magnesium in it naturally. And it also affects other parameters like our pH, alkalinity, and hardness. And one of the cool things that you'll be able to do as you go on and you test more water bodies, you'll be able to understand and predict what conductivity levels you might get in a region. So our conductivity meter measures in microsiemens. So I got my little sample cup here. And we also measure water temperature at the same time because they do have a relationship, and this automatically adjusts for the, it's ATC, automatic temperature adjustment or something like that. So make sure that you record both the conductivity in microsiemens, you see the US, and the temperature, which is there. Now, the cap, it's not a twist, it's a pull, like this. So make sure that you pull, don't worry about breaking it. And then to turn it on, you just press the top button once. To get your sample, you can use your sample cup, or you can put it directly in the water, but we're testing at least an inch below the surface. The reason being that the top layer is a different layer, and we want to be sort of consistent about that. If you can't reach the water, you can use your selfie stick. Make sure you tighten this. And you can either put it across the top. For fast flowing water, I highly recommend you put it across the top because it won't fall off. Or if you're in a lake or something like that, you can just put it like that. Yeah, you don't want it to fall off. We don't want you littering, and then you can't do your test, right? But on here we have a little sticker, and what it does is it reminds you to always rinse the cup 3 times before you take your sample. And you want to make sure if your feet are in the water that you're gathering your sample upstream. So when you walk in, you're disturbing all the sediments. So you want to make sure that your sample is upstream from it. You're not doing it downstream, which is the stuff you've disturbed. You rinse it 3 times, and I like to do it a little bit away from where I'm going to take my sample, and then you take your sample at least an inch below the surface, so you dunk it underneath. So once you have your sample, you want to do this test right away, and the reason is you're doing temperature. So if you leave it out for 5 minutes, it's not going to be that accurate anymore for the water temperature. So you can see here, I'm getting a reading of about 116 and 22.1. I think it might be backwards for you guys, but yeah. So this makes total sense, and like I was saying, you get this ability to sort of guess. The drinking water here in Ottawa is the Ottawa River, and it's got naturally low conductivity. You might have drinking water it's from a well, and it would probably have more stuff dissolved in it. And the reason is because it's sitting there on the bedrock. Okay, so you're gonna see the US. If you're in an urban center though, you might see 1.45. And you're like, what? What do you mean 1.45? Look closely at the units here. If it changes to MS, that means that you're above 1,000, which is quite common for urban streams. And you need to make sure you record it times 1,000. So 1.45 would be 1,450. All right. So make sure you shake it off. If you are in urban streams, I also recommend you rinse off your probe after and just put it back on. To turn it off, you just press the top button once. Now, sometimes you hold buttons down too long and you get into like a mode where it's like flashing or whatever. We've included the manual for the device, but it's not written in a very user-friendly way. So the way that I do it, and I recommend to people, is to just open up the top, move the battery, you'll turn it off, put it back on, and then it should work again. So all your conductivity meters have been calibrated for the season. And I think Vince and I need to send you some calibration solution, but if not, if you don't have any, please let me know and I'll send some. But unless you're getting weird readings, we only calibrate at the beginning of the season. But then if it ever goes into storage for a little while and you're not using it, it'll need to be calibrated again. And there are some videos online for that. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is test strips. And people always say, like, why are you using pool test strips? Well, we tested a whole bunch of about 15 different types of test strips, and we found that this brand made by Taylor is by far the best and the most accurate for pH. There are some, I'm going to go grab the one that you can buy yourself. So this one is actually manufactured by the same people that made this. But you can buy this at a Walmart or a Home Hardware. So if you run out or you ruin your test strips, you can always buy some yourself. We use this one because it's actually much nicer to compare on the back. And you can see like this one is sort of curved around. And it actually has some extra parameters that we don't test for, like cyanuric acid and free available chlorine, which we don't do. But yeah, so really want to make it accessible for people, and so it uses the same types of technology, so that they are comparable. So when you first get it, it might have a seal on it. Take that off, but we want to make sure that we never get water in here because it's going to ruin all the test strips. And we just can just shake one out. And you're going to see your pad here. So we're measuring total chlorine, pH, total alkalinity, and total hardness. People are like, why are we measuring total chlorine? Well, we don't know if it's valuable or not yet, but we're getting a lot of people in urban areas that are getting readings for total chlorine, similar to what we see in drinking water and pools. What this means to me is there might be a relationship between that and chloride, which is related to road salts. We haven't finished figuring that out yet, but we're asking people to write the chlorine down, just so that we have a nice little data set to do. Okay. So with the strips, we dip for 2 seconds. And then with these ones, we read them right away. With these new ones, we wait 20 seconds because the pad is a little bit thicker on the pH. And we hold the strip vertically and we compare the colors this way. So in my case, the hardness is 0, which makes sense. The Ottawa River is very, very soft water. the alkalinity is around 40, which is low, which makes sense. Again, our conductivity is very low, so there's just not that much stuff in it. So alkalinity and hardness have usually a relationship. They change together. pH between 7.5 and 7.5 and 7.8. And if it is between two values, we take the absolute center. So in this case, we'll take well, there's not an even value, so 7.6. And then I'm getting a reading of 1 for chlorine, which we've had some storms here in Canada, so it makes sense that they're probably treating the water a little bit more. All right, when I'm done, I put my test strip in my container for mail and back later. And then we get on to the last test. John had a question. We have an oak tin that measures pH. We can write this result on the side of the test strip as a reference. Useful. Yes. Actually, we are doing, as I mentioned, we are doing this study. Sorry, the fire truck just went by. Where we're getting professionals to put the strip down and then give us the reference from a probe, so that we can say this is the right value for this test strip. So that would be great, John. I would really love that. Yeah, so that would be very helpful. So if you do have other equipment that you can help us make this stuff better, we'd really appreciate it. And we did have a pH probe originally that we were trialing, but it needed to be calibrated weekly. And it was you had to do it with 3 different samples at different pH levels, and it was just too complicated for us to have you guys do on a regular basis. But we're hoping that this is going to become more and more accurate. All right, last test, and we have some time for some questions, and I'll go through the platform briefly. So this is the dissolved oxygen test. It's really important that you do this test quickly rather than take your full sample cup. And again, we're taking at least 1 inch below the surface. And you're going to see these little ridges at the bottom. You can see them. What you want to do is take out one of your ampoules. There's a box. And you're going to see there's like a little white line. I don't know if you can see that. It's hard to see there. That's a little weak point in the glass. Now, I'm obviously not at the water right now, so I can't do this really quickly, but I'll just pour this into my cup. All right. Let's see. So what I do is I actually put it in the cup, and I just pull it towards me, okay? So it's really, really not a big movement. It's not a push down, it's a pull towards me. So that was it. It fills up with the water. And I invert it 2 times. Now this is a special dye in a vacuum ampoule that reacts to how much oxygen is in the water. So I inverted it 2 times, and then we give you a little timer, so you can set your timer. And then here you're going to see your comparison chart. I always like to take mine out. So to take it out, you're going to grab it from the top. And then to put it back in, there's a little nubby thing here. Put it underneath the nub, and then you just press down. When you're finished with this test, we're just waiting for our timer. In your little bag here, there's these Whirl-Pak bags. We give this to you for 2 reasons. One of them we expect you to use as your little in the field garbage can, but then you can also use them to collect samples. Every once in a while when you're out in the field, you're going to say, oh my gosh, something bad is happening, but by the time the officials get there, maybe they won't be able to take a sample in time. So sometimes you're in the right place at the right time to take a sample, and we wanted to make sure that you felt like you could. Your cup is not sterile, so it's not good for taking a lab test, so we provide you with one of these. To use them, you want to make sure that you're never touching the entrance of the bag. Same with your cup. So when you're using your cup, don't put your fingers inside of it. You contaminate it. So we just rip this top bit off. course, the one I choose. There you go. And then to open it, we don't use our fingers. We use these little tabbies. Open it up. And we can use this as a handle to scoop. And then we roll it over like a dry bag in canoeing. But make sure you write on the label first, because it's really hard when these bags are full to write on them. And there are some gloves in there too. There's 3 gloves, so use them. It's for emergencies, but please make sure that you're always safe. And if you feel unsafe, then don't do it. We never want you to feel unsafe when you're doing this water testing. Okay. All right, time is up. Woo. So, got our comparison. And one of the things we always say is test with a friend. And especially for this test, you have to agree. And the reason is it's a little hard to compare, but it is surprisingly accurate. So we really love it, especially since professional probes for dissolved oxygen can be thousands of dollars, and they need to be calibrated really often too. So we're really pleased with this. And we had one of our partners that she uses this to sometimes check if her probe is calibrated. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, so I always start from the bottom and I move up. And by taking it out, I can actually put it right in between, and then you can angle it. Now, as you can see, it's pretty high. I'd probably say it's around pretty close to 10 there. And that makes sense. It's been out. It's fully saturated. It's clean water. We get in some ponds and in some really polluted areas. I think the lowest that I've heard, they got below 1. And she thought she'd made a mistake, but they had a huge pollution event. And things like algae and sewage create an environment where there's no oxygen, which means the fish can't breathe anything. So different levels are important for different ecosystems. Ponds tend to be lower. Obviously, they're more stagnant water. But there's some more information on that in your guide. We got our ampoule, and what you can do is take this home with you and you put it in the regular garbage. We're still talking with the manufacturer about opportunities to recycle, or we might try and get creative and see if we can get a glass blower to take them in and use them for something. But unfortunately, right now we have to dispose of it. Oh, so I didn't tell you what I was doing. I just poured this out really slowly, so I left a little nubby thing in there. And then we don't just like chuck it. It happens, but try not to do that, because then the little piece of glass is in there. There you go. Good. So that's the kit. If you guys have any questions on any of that, please put them in the comments and I will answer them. But in the meantime, I'm just going to show you how to put your data in the platform and a little bit more about the platform. I think that's it. You see that? Yeah, I think you can see it. All right. Okay, so we've recently just redesigned our website. So if you notice anything missing, please let us know. But you'll see here, there's information about why to test, how to test, making a plan and a schedule. And then you can see there's the test kit training that I spoke about before, where we have the videos, me in the snow. And then we have all our test parameters. So for example, conductivity. You can see a bit about our studies. Gives you some common values. And then one of the things that we're trying to do this year, and we'd love your help with, is ask an expert. So ask us your questions, and we're getting experts to answer them. So this is Conrad Gregoire. He's a retired chemist, and he's been helping us with conductivity. There's a bit about our protocol, how to test, there's me on the lake, and then how to calibrate. So we're really trying to make sure that you have all the information you need here. So when you go to the data platform, this is where you're going to be entering your data in. There's a video there that you can take, and you're going to be able to see what other people in different communities are testing. And then you have your own profile as well. To create a new location, you can use the app and it geolocates to you, or you can find it on the map and you click, and you can add an observation like that. But I already have my testing sites. So let's look at my lake group. So this is our group. Now we're going to create a group for this program with WWF. But if your organization has its own program and you're going to have multiple volunteers and you want to be able to manage that, then you can set up your own group as well. So just let me know. And you can do things like draw the region you're interested in and customize your own form. And that's all in this manage area here, where you can see that you can change what people see, what's unlisted, all those sorts of things. But I just want to show you a little bit about why we chose certain sites for the testing protocol for our 2 lakes. Now there's a combination of reasons why we choose different locations. In this case, this is the deep point. And it's got really great reference points. There's a rock right across from it, and this has been sort of set as the deepest point. This is another deep point over here, but there's also a lot of cottages over here, so we're really interested in that. And then this spot here is near the stream that comes from the other lake. And so it's really interesting, and I think it's really cool to see the effect that the other lake's inputs have on our lake. And then finally, our other location is the deep point on the other lake. So as you collect data, over time, we start graphing your data like this, and you can see the years go by, and you can enter in data, and there's these what's this on the various things. So you can see how is it measured, what does it mean, and sometimes there's diagrams. So for all these parameters, we're trying to answer the core questions we think citizens have, which is, what is it, why does it matter, how do I test it if I can test it, and what are some common values I might get. But if any of that is unclear to you, again, we're really interested in your feedback. And then this is the test, the phosphorus test I mentioned at the beginning that my dad and I do together. You can see it's quite low. And there's also ice on and ice off. And obviously, no chlorine in this little, very, very pristine lake north of Ottawa. So if I wanted to add a new observation to this location, I'd just add an observation. And you can have multiple groups as well. So you can see I'm part of lots of groups. And if you are entering data after the fact, you can record dates back in time. And then you can see this is the form that I've set up for this group. The Secchi depth has another reading called bottom visible that you can select. And then there's other tests, so you can add in wildlife, photos, and notes. So if you have any troubles with this, and especially since we've just redesigned it, if you notice anything not working, please tell us, because we really need your help to make sure that we're getting things right. So yeah, so we have, I think, 92 groups on the platform right now. We have over 1,200 users and I think it's 25,000 observations so far. We can also import your data if you need us to, if you have some existing from your group and you'd like to import it. We do ask, though, if data is collected with different testing protocols, that we keep them into 2 separate groups so that we make sure that the data stays with the same protocol. So I think, I don't know, Najiba, did I forget anything?
So I just wanted to add about the conductivity meter. Every season it needs to be calibrated. It's already calibrated for you, but I believe the kit includes calibration solution for next season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a video online about how to calibrate it if you want to calibrate it and continue your test for next season.
Yes, and we really want to encourage, as part of this program, you're creating some baseline data for your region, but it takes more than a year to make that baseline data. So we always try and apply for more funding to try and get you the resupplies. But it's not guaranteed. But we're also offering people the opportunity, if they want to help us grow, we can give you your own code that you can share, and then we do profit sharing with you. So they get 5% off, and then you get 5% that you can put towards getting your restock of your dissolved oxygen and your test strips, which are our 2 perishable items. Is there any other questions? I see John says, you want to share this webinar? Yes, I'm recording it, so I will post it online later today, and make sure that I send the link out to everyone. I think Najeeba is going to update everyone later this week, just to get them to start planning their plan. So one of the things that we're asking people to do is to actually outline their plan, because we know from behavioral science that when we make a plan, then we're more likely to follow it, because we know what we need to do next. So sometimes things come up and you can't test on the right day. It's okay. I mean, we all do the best we can, but as part of this growing movement of citizen scientists, we really want as many people as possible testing consistently. John says, we'll stay with our data collection. So John has a group on the West Coast that's doing data collection. He's doing amazing work. So they're going to use water ranges alongside that. So I think that's really great. Oh, and Vince says his conductivity meter is calibrated now. Vince is up in the Yukon, right, Vince? Which I'm really excited about. And he started testing over the winter, which I said to him, I don't know how well this equipment does in really, really cold conditions, but I'm excited that summer's coming. You can let me know, Vince, what the difference is between then and now. That's great. It doesn't. You don't think it works well in the cold? No, I don't think so either. And we've had some other test strips that were really, really inaccurate when it was really cold. We were doing this study on high-level phosphates, and during the spring melt is actually the best time to do it, because there's a lot of phosphorus that comes off of fields, and with a big rush of water, you can get lots of runoff. But we found out from the manufacturer after we phoned them that the test strips need to be in at least 15 degrees. I think that it's not the same. We've been okay with around 10 degrees for these ones. But it's something that we're looking into too. And I think I'm going to get Najeeba to do some tests with some different temperatures to see how it works. Do you have any final thoughts, Najeeba, about what's coming up?
Well, I'm always around. I think I've been in touch with mostly all of you. So if you have any questions and you need to set up your schedules and your sites, I'm always available.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, so Najeeba's been really great at keeping you guys organized, which is awesome. You probably also have a business card in your bag. It has my phone number on it. If you have an issue and it's urgent, feel free to give me a call. And if I don't answer right away, I will call you back right away. Want to make sure that you get the answers that you need. So that's it. Awesome. We have a couple more minutes left, so is there any final thoughts? Or I hope you guys are getting excited about going out. I was going to suggest that people, as soon as you get your kit, to go out and give it a try before, as you're creating your plan. We have a couple weeks before your first official testing. But it would be great for you to familiarize yourself with the kit and just see if you have any questions or thoughts before the official testing day. And as I mentioned, you guys are required to do at least 15 observations, and we'd love them to be monthly. But again, I mentioned, so 4 sites once a month until the end of the season. But alternatively, if you'd like to do 2 sites weekly, then that's totally okay as well. How much work has, John says, how much work has been done in tracking down data in the various data deficient watersheds so we don't reinvent the wheel? Yeah, so WWF have been working on this for a few years, and they know that there's still data stores in places that, you know, in a filing cabinet. So they're still working on getting access to that data. You guys were chosen because you were in watersheds that they thought were data deficient. But one of the things that we're going to work on later this summer is connecting you to regional sources. So for example, we have one group in BC, I think it's with Joanna, who's on the phone, will probably speak more to it. But they are a regional data hub who are amazing. What we want to do is make sure that the data you collect is relevant and useful in your region, as well as on the WWF watershed report and with a few of the scientists we're working with. So we're really going to try and make this network stronger by getting some regional contacts for you. So I don't know if Joanna's still there, if she wants to say a bit about her organization. Oh, she's there. She's muted. Oh yeah, she says, hi there. She's working with the Skeena Knowledge Trust, and if you want to check out a really great example on how they've collected data, check it out. It's Skeena, S-K-E-E-N-A. So it's the Skeena Knowledge Trust, and I am so impressed with what they're doing, and I hope that other watersheds can take the model that they've approached and follow it and share data like they do. All right, I guess that our time is up. It is 12:59. As I mentioned, I did record this, and so I will be posting it online, and Najiba will be sharing it with you in the coming weeks so that you can share it with your volunteers if you think that it would be great for them to learn. If you guys think it would be helpful, we can also do in the field session where we show the kit in the field for you. So just let me know what would be helpful for you, what would get you excited. We're here to try and grow the movement, so we really appreciate you guys being part of it. So yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording now. Thank you guys.